Listen, the second half of the show, we've been here all week. I'm tired of talking about football, so we're going to keep talking wrestling, and we need to talk journalism too. We did with Arash Markazi. Now we're doing it with Andreas Hale. One of the best in the business. Finally, we get to do this in person. You've joined the show on Zoom. First off, congratulations on Bridges.
Thank you.
How are you, my friend?
I'm good, man. It's Super Bowl week in Vegas. I know you're talking football, but I'm a Niners fan, so you know this is like a dream come true for me.
So what you've tweeted out about trying to get a ticket.
Yeah.
What's your limit? Because this is it, right? Everyone has a thing. Like, what are you going to spend the most money on? For my baby moms, it was Beyonce.
How much you spend on that?
That's all
when
I'm
it's like
say.
that, was it worth it? Whatever you
For
spent?
her, it was.
Okay, so that's fair. So for me, like, my birthday's coming up, and for me, I won't spend it on myself. My wife is like, look, if you really want to go, but she gasped when she saw those ticket prices. So I'm working.
Well, the cheapest is 8 G's.
Yeah, I ain't spending no 8 G's. I love my Niners, but I could.
Well, but would you spend 8 G's if they were good seats? Because it's 8 G's to get in, meaning it's probably upper deck.
Nah, like it's just the idea that, like, I've covered a lot of sports. I've been at every big fight, big events. The idea of spending $8,000 to go to a game, it's crazy to me. I got kids, man.
But if they win, I got
kids, bro. I can't. How irresponsible does that look? My daughter wants to go to college. She can't get into her dorm deposit because daddy done spend it at the football game. And if we lose, nope, ain't gonna happen.
She want to go see Kung Fu Panda 4, and we can't because Brock Purdy threw a pick 6.
Yeah, I can't. Don't put that juju in the air either, Brock.
Okay, you're right. No, that's crazy. Yeah, I don't know what my limit is. I've been broke, so I haven't had to deal with these problems. I just know that automatically I can't. So I reached out to you, and I should have called you. It was just a text. You know, this is a weird thing that's going on in journalism. First off, it feels like it's dying.
Yeah.
And the reason why I was like, I specifically wanted to talk to you is because I've been fortunate enough to be in the locker rooms of, we're here in Las Vegas, so the Aces and the Raiders, and the traditional sports journalism press conference and being a part of that really does feel like a team aspect. Right. Whereas being in Las Vegas and being able to go to some of these fights and UFC events and wrestling events, it's one-on-one, everyone's in there, which is good and bad. It seems mostly bad in my opinion, but also I didn't go to school for journalism, right? If I had to classify myself, I wouldn't even call myself a content creator. I love talking to people. I love the art of conversation. So I'm an interviewer, and my approach is that I'm fortunate enough to be in that room, and I have a responsibility to go in there and not ask. For the most part, depending on the situation, I might ask, hey, do you want to wrestle Taylor Swift? But there's a fine line, and going into the Royal Rumble, to me, there was only one thing that was really important to talk about. But being in those situations, I'm going to be very honest, the Sporting Tribune, Odyssey, anywhere I work for does not pay for me to go. Shout out to ZipChair, buy the chairs, use discount code Adrian for 10% off. They help me to be able to go to some of these wrestling events. So this is out of my pocket. So now I'm trying to be like, well, if I ask this question and now they don't let me in ever again, was it worth it?
Right.
But journalism, in my opinion, if there's a checks and balance system, journalism is the check. So basically, how have you handled going through some of these things? Because I know you've covered UFC a lot.
Yes.
And Dana White, Ariel Helwani's been highly publicized. He's not the only one. There was an incident just in Toronto.
Yep.
So, just talk me through that.
I mean, where do you want me to start in terms of journalism and sports?
That was a lot. I'm sorry.
Yeah, there's a lot of places to go with it because, I mean, the landscape of journalism in general has changed.
How about we'll start with this. How do you feel the fact that it's changed where it's not only is it not just your traditional media outlets being there because most of them are dying,
right?
But it is now, Adrian's a great interviewer and he's got this many YouTube subscribers. Adrian, you can be in there. Hey, he's really good at TikToks that are just like reaction TikToks or whatever, however you're making it. And I'm not hating, but I'm just saying you got TikTokers, Instagrammers, interviewers, blah, 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 all being in this room where before it was your traditional journalists that went through the schooling and the tutelage of how to behave and how to ask and how to be, do everything.
Yeah, I mean, the game has changed. Content creators to The degrees of separation between your interview subject and the interviewer are shrinking. You can reach out to him on Twitter before he had to go through a publicist, right? There were steps to do this, which also breaks down the walls of credibility. Like, listen, I love Club Shay Shay, but Shannon Sharp's relationships are what gets him those interviews,
100%.
right? And because Shannon's not a journalist. I love what he does, like, don't get me wrong, but he's not a journalist. He's not gonna push back on a lot of those questions the way that another journalist would. What ends up happening is, and this goes in sports as well and everything else, Cat Williams can say what he wants on that show, and he knows that Shannon won't really challenge him, but Cat Williams ain't gonna give me that interview because he knows I'm gonna push back, right? So now, you're scaling back. You're only doing interviews with your friends now. Celebrities interviewing celebrities and entertainers and entertainers. Nobody's asking real questions anymore. It's just a big circle jerk. And you need more people who don't want to be friends with your interview subject asking serious questions. And it's not happening. You mentioned the UFC. Dana White don't want real questions at those press
100%.
conferences.
For years.
He never has. And he says he hates media. No, he doesn't like being challenged. And he likes media that's going to toot his horn and promote slap fighting. But let's talk about the pay disparity in the UFC. He don't want to talk about that. He doesn't want the fights being broken. He doesn't want to talk about any of those things. That's journalism, though. Like, misuse terms, journalism and like clickbait. I've watched them just misuse these terms all the time. So the landscape is changing, which means I don't know what's going to happen in the next few years. Like, we all have to adapt. We have no choice. The written word don't mean anything anymore. Like, I started off as a writer, like that first and foremost. I started in music, writing 2,000 word features, 3,000 word features. Who's reading? You know, so between that and the idea that when celebrities interview celebrities, they don't have to fact check. They don't have an editor telling them, you know, the barriers are broken down, and it makes it more difficult for people who want to do their job, can't do their job because for the most part, the celebrities just want to tell their story, not have anything pushed back.
And it's funny, I'm masquerading this interview as really just advice and someone I admire, because I'll push back on you, or I'll respond to with these two things. I will say, when it comes to sports though, I do appreciate, like, when JJ Redick gets to talk to Chris Paul.
Oh, I love it.
And they get to argue.
It's great.
I know Paul George specifically. Now Gilbert Arenas and some of the other ones, not my cup of tea. But hey, whatever. They're very successful and they're good at what they do. But when you bring up like the, you have to be friends with your subject. I guess, like, I don't know, man. Like, I feel I have to move with kindness, because if I'm not, I don't feel like I'm gonna get them opportunities, bro.
Let me be clear. I'm friends with a lot of people, but when the camera turns on, I'm not here to promote what you're doing, and that alone. If there's something in your life that's happening, we got to talk about it. The worst thing you can ever tell me is no comment, and I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
If it's something personal you don't want to talk about, you say no comment. But I got to ask the question. Don't get mad at me for asking the question.
100%.
For the most part, when friends interview friends,
it don't even get that far.
They was like, well, don't talk to me about that, bro. And when you do that, you close the window on what you want to know, right? So I love JJ Redick. I like Gilbert Arenas. I'm not saying to get rid of them. I'm just saying the scales are tipped so far one way.
And I meant to say, like, at least in the sports realm, I appreciate it than the celebrity ones and all different stuff. It just seems with the sports ones, because they get into details of certain things in the business that we don't get to see.
It's great storytelling. I'm a big fan of, like, Drink Champs, right, with Noriega's show. I'm a big fan of rappers talking to rappers about things that they never talked about publicly because they're comfortable. I'm a fan of that. But you're also losing jobs in journalism because now all they want to do is talk to their friends. Like, that's all they want to do. It has to cut both ways. I'm all about balancing everything in life, and I don't think we have enough of it. And that's why, like, the journalistic field is dying, because it's about likes, clicks, TikTok followers. But is it about, can you do your job? And it ain't. It ain't about that as much anymore.
It's tough. I feel bad because I value a lot of that, but I've been in circles where I've heard people say, my Twitter does really good, but my YouTube doesn't. And I'm like, yeah, because when they check out the full 20 minutes of your 2-minute conversation, you can pull 40 seconds and make that look good.
Oh, yeah.
But is that conversation dope? And I try to, that is my goal. I want to move on to the Royal Rumble. And I said this earlier, I want to be fully transparent. I was at the press conference. I raised my hand only during Triple H's press conference. I was not called on. Shout out to Cam Hawkins, John Alba, Brandon Thurston, Nick Hossman, who really went in on the subjects. And, you know, I've heard them say this, and it is crazy that they have to get applauded when that should be the standard.
Yes.
Which is crazy, but that's where it is, and salute to y'all. And because I did not have enough time to call you, and I didn't want to call you from the press box, I talked to Brandon, and I was like, hey, man, like, I got a couple questions in my head that I'm trying to formulate and see, and we kind of talked it out. Crazy thing is, we didn't know until about halfway through if there was going to be a press conference, because usually they give us the band and let us know. They didn't let us know until the men's Royal Rumble was, like, starting.
Wow. Okay.
So, but to their credit, I was not told, can't ask this, can't blah, 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 blah. It was normal. We went in there and did our thing. Actually, it wasn't normal. This was the first time that fans were also in there.
That's
because
weird.
they paid.
Yeah.
So there was like a dude dressed up as Hulk Hogan cosplay, like right behind Cam Hawkins and like all this other stuff. So that was strange, and that was the first, but that's the UFC package deal that they're doing. But I guess my question to you is, watching that press conference, how did the room do, in your opinion?
It's all right. Pro wrestling is very weird because it's like, when do you ask a real question and when do you ask a pro wrestling kayfabe question?
I need to cut you off really quick.
Yeah.
In UFC and in boxing, and I ask that specifically because I know at Raiders and Aces, I would be fired if I clapped when Asia Wilson walked into the room.
Of course you would.
And Devontae Adams.
Yes.
We get into the wrestling locker rooms and we start clapping, and that's like, what are we doing?
It's weird. It's very weird because it's like, are you part of the show or are you doing a job? Shout out to Cam Hawkins, who asked the hard question, right? But for the most part, media in these events, not a lot of them are trained journalists. You don't really have to be. But they're not here to rub anybody the wrong way. Or they don't feel like they can ask that question. Vince McMahon allegations, obviously. Same thing at WrestleMania. When I was at the press conference at WrestleMania, the TKO deal had just got announced. And they didn't tell us not to ask it. And I had lost my voice that week, so I couldn't ask. And they knew I was going to ask that question. I think Nick Houseman ended up asking that question. But some people don't feel comfortable because they don't want to rub them the wrong way, and they feel like they won't get invited back. So the room did all right. Some questions are really dumb. It's the nature of the beast, right? I cover UFC. I listen to dumb people talk all the time. Dumb fighters, dumb journalists.
But you know what was like very eye-opening to me? First off, I kind of get upset because in this journey of me being a content creator and me trying to do what I'm doing, like, I haven't made much money, but any money I've made, I've used it to invest in stuff.
Right.
So I see dudes in there with not the proper equipment, and I was like, well, what's the point of you even being here if you can't even capture? But the other thing, too, is being here specifically at the Super Bowl, you know, there was a lot of pushback when, hey, do you want to wrestle this celebrity? And it was pretty silly. But then I went to opening night, and, like, Travis Kelce got asked, I saw NFL players be asked, what's your favorite Super Bowl snack?
Oh, listen, it's weird across the board. Like, dumb questions come from everywhere.
Yeah.
Everybody's trying to get a moment, right? A lot of people want to be the star ahead of the stars, right? By asking these goofy and silly questions. It's okay. The Royal Rumble press conference, it was fine, and I don't think people know how to navigate those situations because there's no rule book on how to navigate a pro wrestling press conference. Because again, am I talking to Paul Levesque? Or am I talking to Triple H?
What's this been, 2 years, 3 years since this has been a thing, since AEW decided to start doing them, right?
And it's weird, and you watch them, and it's weird because, like, even with AEW, Tony Khan gets asked about the whole Chris Jericho situation, and he's got Tony Storm's hat and sunglasses on. He's not ready to answer a serious question. But a lot of people cut that clip as like Tony's not being serious about Chris Jericho. He got caught off guard, but you have to be prepared in those situations. That's your job. That question is going to come. So the room did all right, man. I can't really fault anybody. I know the people that I know in this business knew what they were going to ask. Like when I saw Cam, shout out to Cam Hawkins, I think he's tremendous. He knew what he wanted to ask. He didn't mince any words. He was just very straight up with it. And it's really up to Triple H and the PR team to navigate those waters. It ain't our job as journalists to make them feel good about the question we're about to ask.
Yeah, that's true. This has been enlightening. Let's get to a better subject, an amazing subject. You came out with a short film that was amazing, that I cannot wait to watch with my son, who's already watched it, but he's away, he's out of town, and my niece and my sister, who is a principal in Harlem, who I'm forcing her to add onto the syllabus or the agenda of every class. Whenever, not just in February, Bridges is out.
Yes.
First off, if you could explain what Bridges is and the reaction to it now that it's out to the world, finally, right?
Yeah, 3 years, 3 long years. For those who don't know, me, WWE superstar Big E, Jonathan Davenport, who designs everybody's ring gear. After George Floyd passed, pandemic's happening. We're sitting at home. Big E calls me, says, hey, me, Woods, and Kofi want you on the New Day podcast because we want to talk about George Floyd, but we've never really talked about it very in depth, and we think you can help us navigate that conversation. And if anybody saw it, it was a very emotional show that day. I think everybody cried on that show. And it ended up being like top 3 on the podcast chart. But when we left it, we're on a group chat, and it was like, now what, right? We just had this very cathartic conversation about Black history and George Floyd and police brutality. But now what? So E has been going through like trying to figure out how to have like social justice or activism while he works. And one day, people remember him and Kofi knelt in the ring.
Yeah.
He had some ring gear, and it looked like Schoolhouse Rock with his history of like civil rights activists. And he shows it to me, and I'm like, what are you doing with that? And he wears it, and I watch it, I think it's amazing. I said, what are you doing with that? He's like, oh, it's just my ring gear. I was like, you just gonna get rid of it? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, that can't die in a wrestling ring, bro. We gotta do something. I was like, that looks like Schoolhouse Rock. I've worked in the music industry a long time. I said, and Johnny can create, why don't we make a cartoon that blends Black history and hip hop? And I was like, and just to see how it would work, let's do a Kickstarter, see if people would like this idea. Because kids aren't taught Black history at all. Like, minority history in America is terrible, right? Any culture, awful. So he's like, if we attack this at its root, and you attack ignorance and racism at its root, kids could be more acceptable of other kids, because a Black kid don't know he's Black until somebody tell him he's Black and he's weird for being Black. A Mexican kid don't know he's Mexican, something's wrong with that, until somebody points out his accent. There's nothing wrong with any of those things. We gotta accept each other. So started a Kickstarter, raised $130,000. I got my friend Rhapsody, Grammy-nominated rapper, Eric the Architect from the Flatbush Zombies. We did the song Ruby Bridges. My name is Ruby Bridges. Took us 3 years to get this thing done. It's finally out now, and the response has been incredible. And I'm not saying that just to say it. He does this to me all the time because I never see it. Everybody he knows cries when they watch it. Everybody I know, nobody's cried when they're watching. It's like, this is amazing, but they don't cry. But then he sends me video, like Becky Lynch watched it, she cried. Real tears. Because it's not just about Ruby Bridges and being the first African-American girl in 1960 to integrate an all-white school. It's about being an outcast. It's about being not accepted by your peers and not knowing why and having to take the first step. So we wanted to hit people on a number of levels. It's 13 minutes short. You can watch it on Our Heroes Rock YouTube channel and share it as far and wide as you can because we want to make more of these. But that's like the genesis of it, man. And I'm so happy it's out. And we got nominated for an NAACP Image Award. So it's been great.
Salute. That's amazing. And the plan is maybe possibly more?
Yes. I mean, we made it as a pilot, right? Like, the idea was make a pilot episode, see if somebody wants to pick up. And without talking too much, we've had a lot of meetings. We had meetings when we started the Kickstarter, and now that it's finished, we're having more meetings. There's
people, and now that people see what it is, because everyone always needs to see it, right?
Yeah. You got to see it. So people have seen the music video, and they was like, you guys did this? Yeah, we're 3 idiots. A pro wrestler, a writer, and a graphic artist made a cartoon. We didn't know what we were doing, but it came out incredible, man. And I say that not to toot my horn. It's like my team, like Ettore Ewan, Big E, that's my brother. Like, we're not just in business together. Like, we've been friends for years. And Johnny, the man's the kindest man. He's got such soul. Like, he wrote and directed the thing. But we did this because we felt it was necessary. We felt that people needed this in their life. And we don't want a trauma story. We wanted this to be happy.
Celebrated.
Yeah, like, we don't want it to be pedantic when you learn about history. I was in history class as a kid, and I hated it. I got older and I started reading. And I was like, oh, there's better ways to tell these stories. We want to make it fun and engaging. And then I love Baby Shark. I got a son that's about to turn 2, but I love it because it shuts him up. I hate that song. I wanted to make something that I thought would be dope, and parents would be like, I can actually rock with that.
And with a dope MC. Shout out to Rhapsody.
It's my sister. I love her to death.
How, like, what has it hit you? I guess, what am I trying to ask? An idea to finally come out as great as it is. Have you had a moment to yourself to be like, wow?
No, this sounds dumb, man. Like, I've always watched people, like I grew up in front of a TV, so like a different world. Everything's inspired me in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
My parents weren't really around like that, so I watched a lot of TV, music, like hip hop educated me. So when I always saw them have those interviews, like, do you realize what you're doing? They'd be like, no. I was like, that's nonsense. You know exactly what you're doing. Now I'm in that situation, I don't see it. What I do see is something that we worked really hard on come to life, and it doesn't feel real. Because it was just an idea, again, between 3 idiots who was just like, let's do something to change the world and see what happens. And now it's like I'm gonna put him on blast. Xavier Woods is crying in a voice note about how special this is to him. That's when it feels real. It's like something that we made is touching people in that kind of way. That means everything to me. I don't care about the money. We lost money doing this. Like, we don't care. But when it touches people in that way, those are the moments you go, I guess we are doing something. And the 3 of us are really bad at bigging ourselves up. Yeah. So it's like we got to pump each other up. And he's like the biggest cheerleader.
Don't worry about it. That's what I'm here for, dog. And by the way, the retweets of like the classrooms and everything, watching it is absolutely incredible. And you know what? This is a positive note to end this interview, because I don't want to go back to the other stuff. We have plenty of time to do that. Andreas, thank you so much for the time.
Absolutely, but I want to say this. You've been very supportive of everything, and I appreciate that. And I don't forget people who've been supportive no matter what, right? For me, there's no such thing as being too big for anything, right? So I say this to anybody watching. This dude, you're the real deal, bro. You know what you're talking about. You work diligently, you work hard, and anything I can do to help you with anything. You have my number. Everybody else don't. You have my number. Just shout. Just hit me up.
Andreas, thank you, bro.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
My guy.
Appreciate you.
For sure.